All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you can see my face or hear the dulcet tones of my lovely voice, you know that it can only mean one thing. That's right. It is time once again for the worst 120 minutes in all of sports. I'm Mike, and I'd like to cordially welcome you to the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. Was that a inadvertent finger stead?
Oh, no.
I mean, because if it was right on time.
That's just my longest one. That's a teacher gap. You know, you do something crazy, all the kids start laughing, and then you realize, like, oh, I have my hand in the wrong position.
Well, I mean, right as I say we're the worst 120 minutes, you give the crowd the finger. Like, it works perfectly. We should stick with it. Yes, that was not a mistake. We meant to do that, folks. Well, I was going to do this a different way, but I will welcome and say hello to my good friend and partner in all things podcasting. Stead, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to chatting a little bit. But I do have one piece of beef that I'm going to share. Maybe I should wait till Cam gets here, but I'll go ahead and tease it. It is, for some reason, I don't understand why they have to show Italy on Sunday. It's the only game we get for Six Nations on Sunday, and it's always freaking Italy. I'm tired of watching them just get stomped every time. Can you move them to Saturday at least once and get a more competitive game played on Sunday for those of us that's our day to watch rugby? Please. I could not. I got through about the first 20 minutes and said, this game's over. I turned it off.
It was pretty bad, especially, and London Sean is not here to explain this to me, especially when Italy went down to 13 men after that. You heard all the commentators talk about it. You know, it was a injury to their hooker and then a red card, which resulted in them having uncontested scrums and needing to go down to 13 guys. I question sometimes what they call the double jeopardy punishments that go on in rugby. I have no doubt after this tournament that they're going to take a look at that rule and see if there's any way that it can be adjusted. Because it would make sense to me that, okay, well, you don't have, and I guess this is my naivete about rugby. Instead, like, you don't have a hooker, but do you have another guy in the front line who can do something similar? It's like in American football, if you're only carrying two centers and both of your centers go down, you sub in another offensive lineman. And I don't understand why
you shift the guard over and then you sub in an offensive lineman. Usually he's going to pick up that guard or tackle slot. Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't understand why that is not allowed in professional rugby. I'm wondering if after this spectacle, which, as you said, was the only game of the week, and it started like that, and of course it was complete and utter domination. It was all downhill from there for Rome, who go on to their 9,997th consecutive Six Nations loss. It was a doggone shame. But you teased it a little bit. We do have a really good show in store today. We're going to have Celtic Cam on. We're going to talk a little, open show by talking a little bit of Scotland and a little bit of rugby. We got Bayern Rob waiting in the wings. He's going to give us a little bit of news on the Bundesliga, and we're going to talk a little bit about MLS, which kind of snuck up on us. It's the earliest start to an MLS season ever. When they started the last weekend in February, they got to get this season in with the international breaks before November so that they can get the world. So we got an early start. It just seems almost unseasonable to be starting it. Fortunately, we had good weather in this area, which means that you didn't have to deal with snow or anything bad to kind of disrupt at least DC United's opening day at Audi Field. We're going to talk to Larry, the insurance guy, hopefully, and get some news on Man City. They had a somewhat controversial win over Everton this weekend, and the big game this weekend, the City Derby coming up. And then we've got a really interesting discussion to close out the show with the professor, Matt Kowalski, and Chelsea Mike Shustak going to join us. We're going to talk about the ramifications of the invasion, the situation in Ukraine. Mostly focusing on the sports perspective, get their thoughts, because they're both very knowledgeable on not only Eastern European football, but just Eastern Europe in general. They've both been studying Russia, the Ukraine, and that area for a long, long time. I know Matt teaches it up at Temple. He teaches Russian history up at Temple, so he's really a good guy to talk about with this, and then see what this situation means for the Ukraine, for Russia having been expelled from the World Cup and banned from FIFA and UEFA competitions, and the near and short term effects that this is going to have on both countries. So, yeah, we got a lot going on tonight, Stead.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only unfortunate thing was we're going to lead off with a slightly sad note for those of you who were hoping to hear or see Coach G live from Mardi Gras. It appears that the 2 weeks of parade season have finally caught up with G, and he has decided to bail. And we understand. We understand. I mean, you know, it was his first full Mardi Gras. You know, a lot of us will go down for a day or two, maybe 3. He's been in the midst of it for the better part of 2 weeks now, and that's a lot of parades. That's a lot of beads. That's a lot of tosses and stuff like that. So, and you know, the king cake and all that sort of stuff. So he's going to join us. Hopefully next week we'll get a recap on his exploits down in Mardi Gras. So, man, yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and bring on our good friend Celtic Cam and get this party started off right. Cam, how you doing this evening, my friend?
I think I've definitely had better weeks. Yeah.
Well, you've also had worse ones, so we kind of land in the middle of it. Yeah, it wasn't a good week all the way around. Celtic losing to Bodo Glimt in the European Conference League, the UEFA Conference League, then drawing 1-1 at the weekend. The only good news and the saving grace for that one was that Rangers also were held. So the gap is still 3 at the top of the table in the Scottish Premier League. And then, yeah, it was an unfortunate one for the Scots against the English this weekend. They did not look as strong as I had anticipated. Mm-hmm. And it makes you really rue that loss to Wales a fortnight ago, when you felt like they had that opportunity to get one over, and how things might have changed if it hadn't happened like that. So where do you want to start with the I'm sorry, it wasn't a loss to England. I believe it was a loss to France.
France, yeah.
France.
A pretty I don't want to say dominant, but clear. You know,
yes,
that's a pleasant way to put it, Sted. Pleasant way to put it.
I'm sorry, I got it slightly mixed up. It was France, Scotland, and Wales, England. The Wales England match was a really good one.
Really good one.
Yeah, Wales making a surprise comeback late and having a ball. Now, granted, they had the ball deep in their own territory, but at the end of the game, they had the ball with a chance to win with a try. They just unfortunately could not get that done. Meanwhile, Cam, I don't think it was that Scotland was that poor. I think that France are really, really good.
I was just about to say that the French team just look like they are head, shoulders, and maybe even chest above the rest of the competition. I mean, the size of those guys and the way they move from a lay fan is really, really quite impressive.
Yeah. Even the youth players, the guys that don't have that same level of experience, are playing at the same level that some of those guys that have, 50, 60, 70 caps, and they maybe have 5 or 6. I mean, you're absolutely right. I think they're just head and shoulders above everyone else in the competition right now.
They are big, they are fast, and Antoine Dupont, the French scrum half, has I don't know, he's got to be high in the running for player of the tournament at this point in time.
Again,
yeah. The only person I can think of right now that has had quite the impact that he has, and it is Marcus Smith for England, who has just been a revelation for them. But again, Antoine Dupont is doing kind of what Faf du Plessis did for South Africa in the Rugby World Cup in 2021. It's just, when you're watching him play, the creativity, the movement, the agility, for a lay fan, for a young, for somebody who hasn't necessarily watched a ton of that, I'm looking at him and I'm saying, okay, I guess this is how this position is supposed to be played. And, to be honest, when I look at him, he's not a particularly large guy. He only goes about, he's stocky for sure. He's definitely muscular, but he only goes about 5'9", 185. So when you look at him compared to some of those absolute units that they have on the French front line, he looks quite diminutive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so I when I played rugby, I played scrum half. I'm not the biggest guy, and it was always said that the scrum half has one of the hardest jobs because they combine the forwards and the backs together. They have to have that combination of power and speed. And as you're saying, Dupont has that perfectly. He's got that power, speed, and creativity. I mean, we went into the game saying that our sole mission really was to lock him down, and we weren't able to do it. I think he arguably could be one of the greatest scrum halves that Europe has ever seen, for sure.
I think instead for us, you and I, who have just recently started watching the game, I brought up those guys, the Marcus Smiths, the French, the Antoine Dupont, Faf du Plessis, certainly guys that I've noticed playing that, because from an American perspective, that scrum half, the fly half, those two positions are about as close as you can come in rugby to an NFL quarterback, right? That they are, as Cam said, connecting that front line with the back line. They're responsible for setting the offense and getting it kick started. And then you see how many times that ball comes back to them. Oh, and by the way, they do the bulk of the kicking too, which is also, as we've learned, a very important part of the game. So you said you watched Saturday's games. What did you make of Scotland's performance versus France? I know we've all kind of said, France is just really that good right now.
Yeah, no, I think France is just stunning. I mean, Scotland, this year, Scotland, each game that's gone along, I've seen the defense that when they played England was so strong. When they played Wales, it was a little weaker. They let up, a few, fouls here and there, and it was a little bit, okay, it's just a bit sloppy now. Against France, I think that's the first time we've really seen the Scottish defense actually really get run down, not by fouls, but purely by, how attacking they are in this competition. I mean, we're beating a dead horse here, but Dupont, the way he's able to offload that ball down the line is just absolutely stunning. And the creativity he has, finding those gaps, being able to set people up to hit those gaps, I think is absolutely just, it's unrivaled right now from anything I've seen in the world of rugby. And for how young he is, I think he's just going to be a continuously regular player for France in the coming Six Nations. Overall, I think Scotland started okay at the beginning. They kind of held it together, but then you could see every 5-10 minutes where the breakdowns were occurring. They had a good few offloads there. Vandermeer, he had a great try, absolutely stunning try, but outside of that, there's not a whole lot to write home about the Scotland performance. It looked kind of like a tired team that just wasn't strategically well set up to deal with France. And I think that's something that we've seen from a lot of the other teams that have been playing France, unfortunately. So, nice attempts, I think, for Scotland, but it wasn't quite fully there.
One of the issues is the book has always been on France. If you put them under enough pressure, they will internally fold, right? And that they will succumb to their own self-inflicted wounds. And that is something that we have not seen with this particular France team. I don't know whether it's that teams have not been able to get to them. They're just too big, they're too strong, they're too fast, they're too creative, or that they are just mentally tougher as a result of, these are our guys that play on championship level teams. The collective sum of the parts, surely the talent's there. If you're saying the mentality hasn't necessarily, but, we have not seen them succumb. And that's why, as we go into this, the last two games, the business end of this tournament, it, on paper and in the table on the field, it all looks like it's France's to lose.
Yeah, I think we could really see a grand slam here from France. I'm trying to think who they play next. Is it Wales?
They've got Wales at home, and then they travel to Twickenham on the last day of the tournament. So it's by no means done and dusted. Right, these are two fairly tough games. Right, no matter what you say about Wales and England both got off to somewhat rough starts, both opening up with losses. But we've seen them grow into the tournament, and although Wales lost again this weekend to England, like we said at the top, it was a really good fight back from them. They had the ball in their hands at the end of the 80 minutes with a chance, having completed the comeback. We've seen England make some silly fouls here and there to let teams back in it. This was a game that England had. And both teams have 2 weeks to prepare for these upcoming fixtures. So it'll be Wales, France, and Stead, you said Saturday is a good day for you? The 12th?
It's in the morning, so probably not. But
it's 11:45, dude.
But I know, but like that's when I'm on. Like my son's got a basketball game. He has basketball Saturday morning, so it's difficult. But France, England, March 19th. 4:00. That's definitely.
Well, the thing about that is it's a very inconvenient. Well, right before that at 12:45 is Ireland, Scotland. So we're going to be out for that one.
If y'all can hang, I may catch the second half of that
one. We'll do our best. We'll do our best. I have to see what my Monday looks like. Or no, I'm sorry. That is a Saturday. We may have to just cancel all of Sunday, but yeah.
I may still have to see what my Monday is going to be like as well.
Yeah, I may have to still see with that one, but I mean, it is shaping up. We've got basically the table's divided into two halves now.
Yeah,
I mean, you've got France, Italy, and France, Ireland, and England all sitting at the top. France on 14 points, Ireland on 11, England on 10. The one thing that all of them have in common, they've all already played Italy.
Which is so good. Had that that point differential stat.
Well, you saw, I mean, Ireland's was at about 20 prior to the game. And afterwards, they're up to 67 with all 3 bonus points. It's just ridiculous what they've done. The good news for Cam is Italy have Scotland next up. Instead, you get your wish because it's a Saturday game.
Yes.
it's Saturday morning, so you do get England Ireland on Sunday. But there's no Sunday game. There's only a Friday.
There isn't, but there's a Friday game, and I could definitely catch that Friday game. Yeah.
Well, that's Wales France. We definitely, that might be appointment viewing.
Yeah, I could do that.
So we'll see you for that, and then Super Saturday.
Oh yeah,
which is a good one. I can't get Stead to watch football anymore, but I can occasionally get him out to watch rugby.
Hey, I can appreciate that. I'd be the first to appreciate that.
Well, and so I guess at this point, the only thing that we can say, and I guess we'll talk about it again more next week as we get to the game, because they're taking this weekend off to recover. It is a physical game. you want to see how many points you can score against Italy, and you don't want to be at this point the team to lose to them, right?
No, and that's the Scottish curse right there. We come in really hot, do really well, and then Italy, that would honestly just, I think, break me for this competition. I don't know if I could watch anymore. I really don't.
Here's hoping it doesn't happen.
It'd be another Bodo Glimt loss.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, I was a bit surprised that Celtic didn't have more across these two legs. We always knew that the game in Norway was going to be tricky. But the fact that they lost the way they did in Hampden Park in the first leg set it up to be pretty poor overall. Just not a good European tie for Celtic. We can make all the fun that we want to about the fact that they were playing against a team that was in preseason. I just wonder if Angie never having competed in a knockout tie in Europe just got his tactics, his setup, his team talks. He just got this one wrong, and maybe it's just a learning experience.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, he hasn't done great in Europe so far, unfortunately. I mean, we do have to remember it's his first time playing in Europe. Even coaches that have received their FIFA license in smaller competitions in Europe have played. This guy's never played in Europe, period. And his tactics have worked really, really well for domestic league. I'm willing to say it probably wasn't tactics on the first leg of Bodo Glimt, but really it was very sloppy play. It's almost like there was disconnect between the players. It looked like a team that was playing together for the first or second time in a professional game. Very, very sloppy. Jota, who's been a star this whole campaign, just was not on the ball whatsoever. Just the passing was incomplete. Juranovic wasn't quite there. Carl Starfelt, I just don't even know what to do with him at this point in time. It just looked really rocky. It was not a team that looked well put together, not taking chances on goal. That high pressure attacking wasn't there. It was slow, sluggish. And as you say, against a preseason team like this, I don't know if we went in being complacent or what, and just thought that we didn't have to put 100% in, or, it was just, I mean, I can't see them being tired, but yeah, it was a very different team I watched playing that game, playing both legs comparative to a week before that.
So we had talked about the hope that this could be a good experience for them in Europe, maybe not having to compete in the upper leagues of the Europa League or in the group stages of the Champions League. They could take it, they could get deeper into a European tournament. They could, as a team, although the competition in those two tournaments we would expect to be better. They could use this as a springboard to future European success, especially when you look across and you see the fact that now Rangers are in the proper last 16 of the Europa League, having beaten a legitimate team in Borussia Dortmund to advance. They've done great domestically, Celtic, over the course of the last decade. But I have to I have to look back to, I think, almost 10 years to the Victor Wanyama age and that memorable game against Barcelona.
Yeah.
Yeah, when Neil Lennon was managing the first time. To think of a time where they had any sort of demonstrable success in Europe. We thought that the demise of Rangers would give them an advantage in developing, because they were going to consistently be in Europe. There really wasn't a whole lot of competition to prevent them from making it to the Champions League. But it just hasn't worked out like that. And what is it that they need to do to take this next step and be a team that can make, because it was, the early aughts, when I look back at 08, like the 06, 07 to 08, there were times where we would see them in the last 16, where you might even see them, I think once, didn't they make the quarterfinals? In that time frame, it wasn't unusual to see Celtic in the last 16 of the Champions League, or at least getting through the group stages and competing in the last 16. I mean, they went out to, I think it was 07, they went out to AC Milan.
Yeah, AC, yep.
And let's be honest, they actually gave them a game there for a little bit. One might argue that they gave AC Milan, the eventual champs, more of a game in their tie than Manchester United did in the semifinals.
Yeah.
What needs to happen if we believe Angie's the right manager, and y'all seem to think that he may be? We're bringing in new players. Is it just experience? Is it knowledge? Is it recruiting? Is it a lack of competition in the Scottish League? Why is it such a struggle for them to do anything when they're there so often?
Yeah, I think we are at a time now where the club is changing, I think, for the more positive, especially tactically. It's been a while since we've seen such attacking football with Celtic. It's been a lot more defensive. The Scottish game it's been known to be quite a defensive game rather than offensive game. And I think now we're seeing Angie is bringing a new aspect to it. I agree it's a shame we didn't get further in Europe this season, but I think Angie's the kind of coach that, he will learn from this. Let's not forget that he won Australia their first the
Asian Cup.
Thank you. With a team that maybe wasn't the star-studded as some of the other teams. I really do think that if we can win the league, get into the group stages, I think we have a fighting chance. I think Angie's going to learn. I think the talent is there that we have right now, depending obviously on who we're playing. If we're in a group with Barca, Madrid, and Porto, okay, questionable maybe. But, I think we do have the talent that's there, and I think we would be able to succeed. So I think, this is one of the reasons I'm not terribly upset about the fact that we're out of the European Conference League. We can focus on the league, get that group stage, and then look to next year. A lot of these qualifying matches that these smaller teams have to play, in the middle of their seasons and things like that, it really takes them out, takes it out of them, especially when they don't have benches as deep as teams like Barcelona or PSG. So I'm okay with how it's turned out with Europe. I wish it maybe wasn't such a large defeat, but at the same time, I think Angie has a long-term plan. I think any coach that comes in with a short-term plan of success and doesn't concentrate on the long-term plan of success is not a coach destined to be at that team for a while. And, Celtic has always done well with coach Martin O'Neill, people like that have been at the team for a long time, being able to build it up over time. Jock Stein, the great coaches that have been at Celtic have been there for quite a few years, and they've built it up over time. So I'm not too worried. I'm looking forward to us winning the league and getting that group stage qualification.
So we've talked about the fact that domestically, we are getting close to it. We are a little over a month, 5 match days left until the split. We saw Hibs hold Celtic in a game that you predicted would be a very good one on Sunday. Later on, we saw Rangers held by Motherwell. It's getting, the top stays the same. There's still 3 points pending the next Old Firm derby, which is on April 3rd, about a month away, about a month and, about 33 days exactly from today. More importantly, though, let's go down a little bit in the standings. Hearts pretty secure in 3rd, but then you see Hibs sitting on 35 points.
Yep.
In 4th, and Ross County sitting on 30 in 10th.
It's the middle of the table is wild right now. It's absolutely insane. Yeah.
You've got 3 teams in Hibs, Dundee, and Motherwell all separated by goal differential,
Mm-hmm.
with Livingston in 7th, sitting just a point back. St. Mirren down in 8th on 33 points with a game in hand, and Aberdeen on 32, and of course Ross County on 30. As Rob pointed out, theoretically, with a win, Livingston could jump up to 4th next week. 5 games that are going to sort out this first phase as we get to the split, and it is absolutely nuts. Do you want to venture a guess on how that mid-table is going to sort out as we get in towards the business end of this first phase right before the split?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, we've got, as you mentioned, we've got Celtic, Rangers, and Hearts sitting up there kind of in the untouchable zone, we'll say for now. I think it's pretty amazing Dundee's still up there. I think Livingston could definitely move up there, and Motherwell actually end up dropping down. Aberdeen, I think, has a fighting chance. I think we're going to continue to see St. Mirren kind of maybe float where they're at. Motherwell, they've in their last 5 games, they've drawn 2 or 3 and lost 2 or 3. So I think they're a team that could continue to slip, and another team like Livingston, Aberdeen's a little lower. St. Mirren, I don't see them really going up, but I think Livingston and Aberdeen have a fighting chance still to get up into that, that top of the split table there. So I'd probably put my money on one of the top 6 were to fall right now. I think it'd be Motherwell at this point in time.
I'm trying to look at the standings to see who Motherwell have left to play before the break. They've got some tough games, but most of them are right around the teams that they need to beat.
Yeah.
They've got Ross County tomorrow, Dundee on the weekend, Hibs, St. Johnstone, St. Mirren, and Livingston. So your last 5 games pretty much amongst teams that you need to beat. For reference, Aberdeen have Hearts, Rangers, Hibs, Dundee, and Ross counties. So their schedule might be just a tad tougher, right, in terms of how it looks. What games should we be looking out for this weekend as we get into the tomorrow we have another round. We have the match day 29. I see Celtics playing St. Mirren. Any other games that we should be on the lookout for tomorrow?
Yeah, well, this week we have I believe it's Dundee Livingston. That's going to be, I think, the biggest one we're going to see this weekend, because again, they're sitting a point away from each other. Their goal differential is not far apart, 6 with Dundee and 4 with Livingston. I think that's going to be probably a really, really big deciding game coming up. Livingston, I believe, is playing, I looked this up earlier, Hearts, which is, again, it's going to be a difficult game for them. But if they can beat or tie Hearts, then they're going to put themselves in a much better place, I think, to compete against Motherwell and Dundee. So big game this weekend for me is Dundee United Livingston with a knock-on effect. Well,
that's okay. So Dundee, just for reference, Dundee Livingston is tomorrow at 2:45. Livingston has Celtic, I believe, on Sunday.
Yeah, so okay.
So Dundee Livingston tomorrow, as you said, would have a big impact on that. As for the weekend, of course, we've got Celtic playing Dundee or Livingston, and Hearts Dundee have Hearts, Livingston have Celtic, Rangers have
next game Rangers plays against Dundee.
According to mine, it's looking like Aberdeen on the 5th.
On the 5th. Okay, so then Rangers must be playing tomorrow then.
Yeah, they're playing St. Johnstone tomorrow.
St. Johnstone, who was I thinking?
Okay, that's what the Google machine is telling me.
Okay.
They could be wrong.
I was looking far in advance.
So no worries, but an interesting weekend nonetheless. Yeah. All right, my man. Well, thanks for coming on and joining us, and we'll talk to you later and catch up next week when we talk more about the happenings in the land of enchantment. So thanks a lot, Cam, and we'll catch up with you later.
Thank you, gents. Have a great rest of your night.
We need to start handicapping the split instead, because this is wild. We didn't really pay as much attention to it, I think, as we should have.
You're right.
Last year.
Yeah, you're right. Because even when we started, like, everybody was going to pick a team to follow. And we've all been doing it because I put it in the chat line, but I can tell this is really turning into something that is a league that maybe remember how baffled we were with that they made these decisions to do this, but maybe they're onto something here with a 12-team league, that this might be something that could be quite exciting and people should be paying more attention to.
It's both a blessing and a curse, I think.
Yeah.
I love the idea of the split at the end of the season. They try and handicap the schedule to make it so that there's a theoretical way that each team is going to play home and away the equivalent of 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think that gets a little awkward because you're seeing the same game. So you can see theoretically 6 old firms easily.
Yeah.
In a season, right? And you kind of regularly do, because when you think about the fact that they are the 2 best teams in Scotland, it's more of a surprise when they don't play than when they do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of a way, like, you would need for it to happen in Spain between Real Madrid and Barcelona. You'd need them to play. The only way that you could get anything else would be if they played the El Clasicos in the league. They played El Clasicos in the Copa del Rey, the Super Copa, and then were somehow drawn against each other in Europe.
Yeah.
Now we've seen that happen. We have seen that happen, right? I don't want to say like we've never seen something like that happen, but it kind of does. It's both a blessing and a curse, I guess, when you see that, it's like, remember the old days when if the Washington Wizards used to play the 76ers all the time, and it felt like every time you turned around, the Washington Wizards were playing the 76ers.
Yeah, I remember that.
Or last year in hockey, it just felt, every time I turned around, I was talking when I was covering the Capitals because of the way they divided the NHL last year. Every time I turned around, it just felt like every game was the Capitals playing the Bruins.
Yeah. And it also that season too, it felt like earlier in the season they played the Penguins like 5 times in a month, and then next thing you know, they always playing the Bruins. So yeah, it definitely has a ring of that. You have to you have to feel for the struggle that the SPL is having, because they're wise to keep it at 12 teams, but they want to play a lot of games, and so you're just going to get this repeat fixture over and over and over again, and it is they're kind of in a catch-22 here, where yeah, you want more games, you want more television, you want these opportunities to watch the sport to be there, but then again, do you want to play 6 old firms a year? Probably not. Or also, even in that respect, the Celtics need to play Dundee 6 times a year, maybe not that either. So it's kind of like I get it, and I don't want to, and I'll support it. You know what I mean? Even if I don't like it as much because it's happening so often, I will support it, and I get it, and I think it's a good thing.
I know that they need to get the television contract straightened out. They need to get a better streaming, because the one occasional game on CBS, I think when I've had the opportunity to watch it, I've very much enjoyed it.
And I've done the same. And it doesn't need to involve. It doesn't even need to involve, the kind of the bigger teams that we know about, such as like Aberdeen and Hibs and Motherwell. The kind of the other, I kind of feel like you got the big 2, then you got the other 3, and then everybody else is sort of like this kind of spattering neighborhood team. But yeah, if it's on, I'm going to watch it.
And I like it. I just wish there was more of it, and it was more consistent. And I had the ability to wake up and say, okay, I'm going to watch the Dundee Derby, or I'm going to watch this Dundee Livingston game, because look what it means to the potential for the split.
Right.
I feel that, perhaps the split is a bit of a conundrum when you're dealing with the broadcasting, because you can't guarantee what games you're going to have with any great appeal at the end of the season. You know, we know for a fact that you're not, it would be a miracle for Celtic to finish 7th in that league.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can get, or Rangers, even when Rangers were coming back up, they didn't finish that low.
No.
Right. So you know you have the two big ones down there. But you look at the table right now, you said, you brought it up, we've talked about it. You've got, you know, Celtic, Hearts, Hibs, Rangers, Aberdeen. There's a better than average chance you could lose Aberdeen.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And that would be one where, you know, some people would watch and you could lose them. Right. And it also means that when you're going to have 3 games a week that basically no one is going to have any incentive to watch. How do you justify broadcasting them? You know, can you get a ticket that includes, you know, 3 games, 4 games, right? So that you're not stuck with these 3 basically, you know, it's hard to justify watching that as a neutral fan or tell anybody who is a neutral fan that they should watch a game that's below the split unless there's a team that suddenly gets rocking hot and it's just like winning everything in their last 5 games. Because they get, but even then, like the highest they can finish is 7th.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. With more points. Kind of weird. Yeah.
But that's the way.
But you know, you're seeing it's also, you know, it's every single league has to try to do something to get eyeballs on it. And you know, we even see over here in the MLS, they're going to continue with this format that's more suited towards what we're used to over in American sports, simply because it's just what's worked here, and it's maybe not the best idea to try and change it.
The funny thing was, as much as I was complaining about this, and I was talking to somebody today because I was talking to somebody over the weekend. I'm starting to think like you might see more and more leagues go to this sort of format, and it enables you to control some of the schedule and set up some better games, some more rivalry games.
Yeah.
This sort of unbalanced schedule with the 2 divisions. The reason why I bring that up is the Indian Premier League, the cricket tournament that I like to watch, added 2 new teams, bringing it from 8 to 10. So their format used to be played everybody home and away, right? So each team played 14 games. Rather than make it so that each team played 18 and extend the tournament in the number of matches, what they did was keep it at the 14, but they divided it into 2 5-team conferences. So you're going to play 10 games against home and away against your conference. So you play 8 games against the teams in your conference, home and away. And then you play 2 games against your mirrors team. So if you were the number 1 seed in one conference, you would play the number 1 seed in the other conference, home and away. And then you play the other 3, which brings it to 10. And then you play the other 4 teams in that conference, home or away. And again, it just seems like they were using this idea of the unbalanced schedule to give you the opportunity to sneak in an extra viable game or 2.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it works for the MLS. You know, you get to get LA out to Philly every once in a while, even if they are playing DC United 2 or 3 times. And I guess the thing about it is that when we look at a table, when we look at a team, when we look at a league where we let the table dictate, it should be even. If you're going to have a playoffs, what do you care if the schedule is unbalanced or not?
Right.
You let it, you settle it on the field. So, well, we'll talk more about this as the split comes. We got plenty of time to do it. And we also got, you know, we're coming in 2 more weeks of the 6 Nations before we have to give that up. Bummer. Let's change gears and welcome in our good friend, Bayern Rob, who's been waiting patiently. Is it Bayern Rob or Red Bull Rob today?
I mean, it's MLS, so why not both? Why not?
Well, let's start with this. We've got a German-English MLS connection. Marcelo Bielsa bit the dust at Leeds with them sliding down the table this weekend, and Leeds immediately turns to Jesse Marsch of Red Bull New York, former manager of Red Bull Salzburg, had some success there with them in the Champions League before taking over the mothership at Leipzig, where the season got off to a very, 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 very rough start for him. It doesn't help when you've sold your best defender to your direct rivals, but it gets off to a bad start. He takes the brunt of it, but here he is with another opportunity. You get the feeling that Jesse Marsch is still a widely respected manager in Europe. He certainly has the pedigree. Were you surprised at all, either A, that he took the job at Leeds, or B, that he was able to get another job in a top European league as quickly as he did?
I think a little bit of both. Jesse Marsch is a good manager. I think he's a good guy as well, and people like him. Everywhere he's been, people like them. I think the biggest problem that happened at Leipzig is that they kind of grew up a little bit from the Red Bull Leipzig model, where they were press all the time and not really care about defense. It'd be almost like chaotic pressing. And Nagelsmann kind of, made them evolve, and Jesse Marsch wanted to take them back a little bit, and the players did not want that. And I think that's what really did him in. I think the thing with Leeds, it's interesting because Leeds is, was a club that, Bielsa had made them run all over the place, and Jesse Marsch is going to make them do the same thing, which is interesting because typically, what you see when things go out of hand in the top leagues is like, okay, this way's not working. We're just throw it all out and just start all over, right? It goes to a different direction. They're sort of doubling down a little bit on the style of play, and it could doom them. So Jesse Marsch taking his job is a big risk because he doesn't have a transfer window to do anything with. They're far down the table, but there are chances for them to get out, and he will be hailed as a hero if he does that. But if he doesn't correct things and they get relegated, then we're going to get the same old American coach can't coach. We're going to get the Ted Lasso memes, from Jesse Marsch. And it's going to be a shame because I think, people who look at the game understand that Jesse Marsch can coach top division football. And, so I hope that despite of what happens with Leeds, I hope he stays at Leeds or gets another good job and doesn't have to fall all the way down the ladder again and start over, because I think he's really good. He's earned his stripes. And it'll be interesting to see if, the players are going to play for him because, and they're going to continue a little bit of the Bielsa ball or a little bit of the high pressing and running around all over the place. And if Jesse Marsch is going to, if he's going to get a transfer window, if they keep him, and also if he stays up, if he'll get a transfer window where he can make some moves and bring in some people like Brendan Eriksson from Salzburg, who Leeds wanted him, and Salzburg was like, nope, he's unavailable. I don't care how much you pay me for him. He's unavailable. So he might be available this summer. So we'll see. But I'm looking forward to it. I think Jesse Marsch gets his first test against Leicester on very bright early in the morning on Saturday. Bright for us, of course, in the East Coast at 7:30, but it should be fun. I'll definitely be watching.
You want to think that he got some, clearly he didn't just get a 6-month contract, so he got a multi-year contract, but I want to believe that he probably got some assurances from the board that they wouldn't just, if he isn't able to keep them up, because given where they are in the table, it's not like relegation is completely out of the question for them. They're fortunate in they being Leeds. They're fortunate that we believe that there are a couple of teams that are worse than them. But when you look at it right now, you got Watford on 19 points and Brentford on 24 in 15th. You got Watford in 19th. Leeds are only at 23.
And you have to hope, you have to assume that Everton's going to do better. I know they have Frank Lampard. They might do.
That was the issue. Like, we assumed that they were going to do better.
But I mean, I don't know. You never, I mean, like Everton falling would be like devastating, right? Because there's such a club.
Yeah, that would be the biggest relegation we've probably ever seen if Everton get relegated.
I want to say it would rival Newcastle the first time that they got relegated. That was a big surprise, even though Mike Ashley was having all the problems, and he started to feel a little bit turned off by the fans and the team and was not as much invested. But
can you imagine no Merseyside derby? Like that's like hard to fathom.
Well, the reason why you can't imagine that is because they haven't been relegated. They're the second longest tenured team in the top division. So they've been there forever. Sean was mentioning it. It's pretty much been since like World War II that they've been competing in the top division. So there's always been a Merseyside derby. In fact, it was more likely that Liverpool was going to get relegated, and that was why there was no Merseyside derby. I wonder if I don't know. I'm just trying to contextualize it, whether I think it would be my feeling instead is because I saw Newcastle go down.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me as much. Like the shock of Newcastle going down that year when a club that size went down was massive. But then again, we've also got to deal with the fact that Everton have played typically way higher up the table than Newcastle did prior to that.
Well, yeah, and look, Newcastle has had plenty of good seasons in the Premier League. Granted, that was over 20 years ago. But I will say this, though. I think, but you brought up the Mike Ashley situation, and I think that is the main reason why they got relegated, where, I mean, granted, whatever's happening at Everton, you're not hearing about the board as much as you did about Mike Ashley. He seemed to be going through all kinds of stuff at that season, which is the reason why they got relegated. And which is the only reason why I'm putting the Everton situation bigger than that as far as the relegation would be concerned. But I just want to take this back to Leeds for a second. I was listening to the football show on XM today with Roy Hudson, and Rob, I think you hit the nail on the head with just saying the Ted Lasso memes. It's almost as if that television show, while it is wildly popular and very warm and very positive, has really also given people a chance to continue an American bias outside of this country. And even to the point where you're seeing, even in the United States, we seem to think that if a coach has an accent, he's somehow more qualified than an American. And I am quite worried for Jesse Marsch for the reasons that you just stated. He needs to be given a full opportunity, because the Bob Bradley situation was not fair to Bob Bradley. It wasn't. He was put in there and they knew he was going to fail. That's the feeling I got from the beginning. And Jesse Marsch, at least so far, you could say, is probably a better coach. And he came up and listen, Bob Bradley paved a lot of ways for American coaches. So Jesse Marsch should be better. You would hope he's going to be better. But if he's not given an adequate opportunity, it's going to be quite disappointing. Leeds has an opportunity to grow in the United States right now. They do. They have a huge opportunity, and they need to support this coach. They need to give him a chance to get a transfer window, because like it or not, even if you're winning at a league such as the Austrian Bundesliga, you're still winning. You know how to win. And yes, it didn't work out at RB Leipzig, but it should. I'm not saying he's going to be a top 10 coach in the Premier League either. But what I would hate to see is Leeds go down because they've lost 4 straight and they've only got 1 point out of the last 15, out of the last possible 15. Somehow that falls on Jesse Marsch. I just don't think that's fair. He only has 14 games left this season. Give him the transfer window. Give him a chance. At least give him until this time next year before you start considering making it.
I think he needs 12 points.
Hard.
12 points from the remaining schedule, and I think they survive.
Yeah, I agree. Look,
that's gonna be tough. It is tough, right? I mean,
yeah, I don't know. Norwich and Watford are going down. They're going down. They're finished. They packed it in.
The question is, though, can Leeds and Everton overtake Brentford can they suck a Newcastle back into this? Because, given where they're sitting right now, they need to get out of it before they get sucked back in.
I don't think they'll get. I think they're probably going to finish exactly where they are, 16th. I can see Everton and Brentford flip flopping, and I don't see Newcastle. Newcastle's they won 4 of the last 5. I'm not saying they figured it out, but I think that the money that they got and the transfers that they made,
they spent a ton of money.
They're not going to fall.
They spent a lot of money, and it's paying off.
Yeah,
it's paying off, and that project is gonna keep them at least out of relegation.
With that oil money, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Drill, baby, drill.
The thing about but to finish up that conversation, though, Bob Bradley took the job at Swansea because it was an amazing opportunity.
Absolutely, and no one can fault him for taking that job.
Nobody can fault him for taking it. He broke a barrier and becoming the first U.S. manager to manage in the Premier League. We know that he got set a bill of goods, but you felt like at that point in time it was one that he had to take. As far as Jesse Marsch, though, I wonder, he's a younger guy. He has his career more in front of him than behind him. He's not Bob Bradley in the respect that, Bob had the jobs at the U.S. He had the jobs in Norway. He had the job with Egypt. He's had, he was much more evolved in his career, whereas Jesse needs to be, and we've talked about this before with young managers in different ways, be they managers like Aliou Cisse, managers, be they ex-players like Lampard and Direct, being careful about the job that you select next, making sure that you take the right opportunity. As much as I hope that Leeds afford him the opportunity to be successful, I also hope that Jesse did his due diligence on the opportunity that he had, knowing that, at points in time, there were going to be other opportunities in Europe. There were going to be, certainly in Europe. I know that, okay, I don't want to have to restart my career in the MLS, but there would probably be other opportunities available to him in Europe because he's got the pedigree, because he's got the experience, and because his CV from Red Bull Salzburg reads the way that it does, that he was going to get these opportunities. I hope he did his due diligence and understands the situation that he's getting into, and he didn't take on a bill of goods where he's going to, like you said, he loses his job. Then not only do we not have we get another round of anti-American management bias, although it's questionable right now which American managers are qualified to like he is to manage in the top in the Premier League. But also for him now, if he loses his job in the Premier League as an American manager, where does he have to come all the way back to MLS and basically start again?
No, I don't think so. I think if something happens, I think he could get a mid-table Bundesliga job. I mean, he could get like a Frankfurt, a Wolfsburg, maybe if they stay kind of in the middle there. He could get a Bochum, Union Berlin or Hertha Berlin, those jobs like that. And they're big Bundesliga jobs. A Schalke maybe if they come up and they stay there. So no, and we got to remember too, Jesse Marsch, he speaks German, right? So like that helps, right? Like so it helps. It definitely helps getting jobs in Germany. That he speaks the language, because a lot of boards and sporting directors really value that you need to speak German. Even with Pep with the Bayern, he started learning when he got offered a job in January of the year before. I mean, the year that he got hired, he spent 8 months learning German. Just to be, because it was important for the club and for the fans and etc. So Jesse Marsch is a quality coach. I look forward to it. And I can't wait to watch him on the sidelines. And for those folks who are Leeds fans and can't stand Manchester United, just know that Jesse Marsch committed a very hard foul on David Beckham way back in the day when Beckham was at LA Galaxy. Just kicked him right in the stomach, and Beck, had no part of it. And Jesse Marsch got in his face. He's like, he didn't care. He's like, I don't care if you're a star, you're a big name. I want to go up to your face and we'll fight. So there you go.
So let's turn our attention to the Bundesliga proper. We talked about a bad week for Celtic, bad week for Borussia Dortmund.
Oof, awful.
Yeah, going out of the Europa League to Rangers, and then the 1-1 draw on Sunday against Augsburg, which means despite all of their recent struggles, Bayern actually extends their league now to 8 points at the top of the Bundesliga.
Yep. Yeah, no, Dortmund, they're just weird. I mean, Holland is still out, number one. All the goodwill that Dortmund got for signing Nicolas Sula, and got the fan base excited and all that, just went out the window with losing to Rangers and dropping points to Augsburg. Giovanni Reina got hurt as well last week. Luckily, he's not serious. He'll be back in training soon. It's just been awful all around. They can't defend. They drop leads. Jude Bellingham's, going mad over there. He's yelling at players because, it seems like he's the only one taking it seriously and nobody else is. Matt Hummels is a shell of himself again, letting in goals, playing matador defense. It's just bad all around. And it's still, despite all that, they're only 8 points back. I mean, I know it's 8 points and against Bayern this late in the season, it's a foregone conclusion that Bayern will give it up. If anything, Dortmund will drop more points, but still, for all this talk of how bad they played, they're still in second place. They're still in front of Leverkusen, and they're still in front of Leipzig, and Leipzig is only in front of Leipzig because Leipzig started off really bad. But yeah, it's incredible. Like, Dortmund are still having a decent year.
You brought up 2 points that I think we need to explore more. The most important one is this. Jude Bellingham has pretty much been playing out of his mind this entire season. He has been the one mainstay in that lineup. A lot has been made about the fact that Erling Haaland is going to leave this summer. If you're Jude Bellingham right now and you're looking around at this team and the situation that they find themselves in, what are the chances that he says, you know what? It's been real. Thanks for the memories, but I need to push on a little bit.
I think there's a 30 to 40% chance he, tries to pull of Usam Dembele and throw a fit and says, "Get me out of here." I don't know if he'll do that. I think if he wants to go, he'll say it quietly.
Well, I'm not saying throw a fit, but I'm saying
But I think there's a 30 to 40% chance that he'll put in his transfer request and he'll go somewhere. But I think the problem is that just like last year, the reason they did not sell Haaland and Sancho in the same offseason because they needed one of them for Champions League, right? To make Champions League, I should say, to finish top of the table or top four. And next summer, Haaland's gone, most likely with the lower release clause. But that means you can't really sell Jude Bellingham. Even somebody offers you good 80 million, do you really want to get rid of him? Because he's like your only midfielder that is actually going to really dangerous with the ball, who's scoring goals, who's giving it 100%, who's like been clinical all season. Do you really want to lose that? Because they really don't have a replacement at all. So I don't think Dortmund will sell him, even if Jude throws a fit, then they can't sell him because he's much needed. But once the COVID situation dies down and there'll be more money at the gates, I think you're going to see a club make a big offer for Bellingham, and Dortmund won't be able to say no because it's just too good of an offer. And Bellingham will probably want to go back to the Premier League somehow, or go back to England, I should say. Someone's going to make a big offer. He's going to want to go somewhere back home, and Dortmund will cash in and start all over again. So definitely likely. I don't think this summer though. I think it's a chance, but I don't think he goes.
How concerned should we be about this latest Gio Reyna injury? There are two issues with this. Number one, he has missed most of the season due to injury. So are we at a point now where we're going to have a young man with persistent injury problems? Number two, because he has missed so much time this season with injury, as an American fan, we're looking at basically a complete lost year of development for Gio Reyna. On the scale, where are you when it relates to concern over what Gio Reyna has gone through this season?
I'm a little concerned, but he said he'll be back, and he's confident he'll be back to get called up for the last World Cup qualifying window, which is kind of shocking in itself, because I think he needs to get a couple games in before he really gets a call up. But he's confident, and Dortmund need him because they need some firepower, they need some depth in the front three. And he, I think we need him to play to get his confidence up for World Cup qualifying. I'm a little concerned, but he's not concerned, and if he finishes off the season well for Dortmund and he starts a few games and gets major minutes, I'll be okay. But if he gets to the point where he gets hurt again somewhere and then he's out for the rest of the season and deep and maybe like into like October, for example, let's just say the really serious injury, then now we need to start talking about is Giovanni Reyna an injury problem? Because at one point Christian Pulisic was, and he was getting injured a lot, and so it seems like for us American fans, we can't catch a break with young wingers, and I just hope I hope he pulls through, and because the U.S. needs him, especially because Weston McKennie's out for a while, broken foot, so. He's important. He's clutch, and I think he brings an extra element that really nobody else does. He has size, he has quickness, he has confidence, and talent. He has natural talent. So I hope he comes back, and I look forward to seeing him soon.
So let's switch gears and talk a little bit of MLS soccer. Now, in true Too Many Guys Soccer show fashion, we're not actually going to do a full preview of the MLS until at least April, because we like to let them play about 4 to 5 games before we actually try and preview the season, because Stead and I have learned from previous experience, we don't want to preview MLS before it starts because we absolutely have no clue what's going on. But it was the opening weekend. I would say a couple of surprises. I think probably the biggest one for me was Austin putting it 5-0 on Cincinnati in Cincinnati. Struck me as a little bit of a surprise. For teams that we talk about often on this show, DC United beat up on New Boys Charlotte 3-0 in Charlotte. Philadelphia Union 1-1 in Minnesota. And of course, your Red Bulls taking care of San Jose 3-1 at home. What did you think of this opening weekend, sir?
So the two things I really look forward to, obviously, besides Red Bulls winning and New York City losing, thank God, is to see how the LA teams are doing, because I think the LA teams that have LAFC and the Galaxy, they have a lot of star power, they have a lot of attention on them. The league likes it when they do well. And so LAFC has a new manager in Steve Cherundolo, formerly of Hanover, 96 over in Germany. So it's his first time managing a big club. He was assistant for a while in various national team setups. But Carlos Vela's just had a beautiful game. You think he dropped 3 goals, which is amazing for him. He's getting up there in age. And he starts the season off really well. I think his age really can't keep up with the long season, and you'll see him drop off. You'll see him not carrying here and there, but he always starts the year off very, very motivated. And then seeing the Galaxy with a healthy Chicharito, even though they struggled, they still won and they beat NYCFC. And he looked pretty decent. Douglas Costa, who came over from I think he was in Brazil for a little bit, but then obviously he was at Juventus, he was at Bayern as well. He looked impressive. He looked quick. You're going to see some great goals from him this season because he still has a cannon of a leg and really scared the keeper a couple times and made the keeper make some good saves. And then from the East, I like to see Atlanta United because Joseph Martinez is healthy again. That place is a rocking. And, I think Dom Dwyer, who's for a while, we thought his career was over. It seems like he's starting to have a little bit of a renaissance. He played really well. He came on due to injury early on in the match, and he scored. He looked really dangerous, and he scored a really good goal as well. So you have him and Joseph Martinez up top together, along with the talent in the midfield that they have. It's gonna be fun to see Atlanta United compete again. Because I think that when they compete, they're really good. The stadium is full. It's a beautiful product to watch on TV. And obviously, seeing Cincinnati is still bad. They're just awful. I mean, I think Charlotte's going to finish above them. Cincinnati just trash. I mean, they don't belong in. I mean, they should be relegated. Even though there's no relegation in MLS, they should be relegated. They're just that bad. Bring up a USL team, please. Anybody to replace Cincinnati. And then the other thing I looked for this weekend was Shaqiri to see how he would do. He didn't score. He looked okay for the Chicago Fire, but they're all right. I think they tied Inter Miami. So I mean that's I'm a Bayern fan, so I love seeing Shaqiri, and I have fond memories of him. But it's obviously he's like 7 years past how I remember him, and it'll be fun to see him play and see how he adapts to the MLS season. And also during MLS, even started before MLS, you have the CONCACAF Champions League going on. You're in the quarterfinals, and there's 4 MLS teams still in it. In Montreal, the Revolution, NYCFC, and the Sounders, and 3 of those 4 play Mexican teams in the quarterfinals. So NYCFC plays the Guatemalan team, but then Montreal plays Cruz Azul, you got Revolution playing Pumas, and you got the Sounders playing Club Leon. So the quest to have an MLS team play in a Club World Cup continues, and we shall see how they do. They have a matches next week and the week after. They got one leg each week, but so that should be interesting to look forward to. And obviously, I do not want NYCFC to win because for obvious reasons. But they have the easiest matchup. They're playing a Guatemalan squad, and they should really just wipe the floor with them. It should be an easy victory to into the semis soon enough.
Well, then you let them get to the semis, and then they can lose in the semis and be embarrassed.
You're gonna make me root for a Mexican team. That's how much I can stand NYCFC. They're just trapped, and then then they're displaying their star and their shirt. Oh God, they still play in the baseball stadium, by the way, and they haven't played a home game yet. They've been playing in random stadiums all over the country because they don't have a home, and they play in the baseball stadium for crying out loud. And with the lockout, maybe they won't.
They can't make. Yeah, they might not be able to. All right. Well, we want to thank you a lot, and we're going to switch our conversation and bring on our two of our favorite correspondents, the Professor Matt Kowalski and Chelsea Mike Shustak, for a little bit of a different conversation than we normally have at this time. Normally, we're talking about, the lower leagues and stuff in Eastern Europe, but we're going to have a little bit of a geopolitical conversation with these guys, both of whom are very knowledgeable about Russian and Ukrainian history, but we want to combine that knowledge with a little bit of history. So, gentlemen, when you're ready, welcome on. Okay. Matt, how goes it, my good friend?
It goes about as well as it can, Mike. Thought I was going to be on here this week talking about how there should be a title race in the RPL, and there still is, but it's remarkably meaningless now. And yeah, unfortunately, we're going to be talking about some rather different things.
Well, so we all know the situation. We're not going to get too much into the politics of the invasion. But we have a situation where football in the Ukraine, and rightly so, has been suspended. We've seen FIFA make an relatively unprecedented in its quickness move to expel Russia from the World Cup, and UEFA to expel Spartak Moscow from the Europa League, so to eliminate Russian teams from the competition. Normally, FIFA almost requires a UN resolution. The last two times it's happened have been as a result, 92, as a result of the UN resolution condemning Yugoslavia for their the genocide in Bosnia, and the other time was South Africa. You're not going to get a UN resolution this time because Russia's a permanent member of the Security Council and can veto anything, so that's not going to happen. But they do have a buttress. So that's a lot to be said. Russia has already said that they're going to challenge this in the Court of Arbitration for Sport. We've seen CAS even recently go against large governing bodies. The most recent one was the overturning of the ban against the Russian skater in the Olympics, which enabled the Russian team to pick up the gold medal in the team competition. We've seen them do that. We don't know what legal grounds they have. First, let's talk about the logistics. Russia being out, so I'm imagining that means an automatic bye for the teams that were scheduled to play them. So that's one less team in the draw on that side of it. It's too late to reseed, so we'll see that. As for the Russian Premier League, we've seen a lot of broadcasters, companies, Western companies pull out of that, along with players. And managers as well. What does all of this mean from the Russian side? Like, we've argued that isolation might be a good way to deal with this, but what does this mean for what's going to happen with the Russian Premier League? How far potentially would all of this set that back?
Oh God, I mean, it's going to be, especially with the way that the ruble's collapsing, it's going to be back to the bad old days of the 1990s. Russian football, even in its sort of gangster paradise glory years from about 2002 to about 2008, 2009, was unstable financially. A lot of clubs, a lot of historic clubs going bankrupt for a number of reasons. I think you're going to see a lot more of that, especially with the loss of Western sponsorship and the money coming in from, big club competitions. And yeah, I mean, I for all intents and purposes, Russian football is dead. It died this week in a very sort of profound way. And even though the RPL is still going to be playing matches this weekend, although anything close to the front lines is going to get postponed. So nothing in Rostov, nothing in Krasnodar. This league is sort of effectively on life support. And it's sort of crazy because the first time in almost 5-6 years, there's a legitimate title race down the stretch. And it's absurd. It's actually meaningless.
So as far as like this means, and we talked last week about how the new caps on foreigners, all of this stuff was meant to rejuvenate the league and then to benefit the players, and then bringing up the idea that maybe some of these young Russian players would leave. I don't want to say. You brought up the point. I want to make it clear at the end of the conversation on Eastern Europe last week, which I've hung on to very much. Putin is not Russia is not Putin. Putin is not Russia, right? So the idea, like, he's not wholeheartedly, and some of these athletes should not necessarily have their careers retarded simply because of their nationality. We've seen, Formula One, the FIA say like Russian and Belarusian drivers, most especially Nikita Mazepin, can still drive, just not under a Russian flag. I use that to say if they get the opportunity, which could be doubtful. Do you see an outflux of Russian talent from the Premier League, guys looking to get out while the getting's good?
Yeah, I do actually, particularly some of these younger players like Arsene Zakarian, Denis Makarov, guys who are in their sort of early 20s, particularly the crew over at Dynamo Moscow, because simply the style of football they play, I sort of jokingly call them, Anfield KGB settings, because Slavo Bubac is the director of football, Sandro Schwartz is the manager. It's literally Klopp's old, Mainz crew intact over there. I could see these guys going to a place like a Dortmund or, maybe even a Liverpool, at least in Zakarian's case. I think he would, in a year or two fit us like a glove. Because at the moment, talk about, rotting in the RPL. Now, this is rotting in the RPL times 15, because you're not going to get European football. And if you can get out, you probably should get out now. And in terms of the foreigner limit, I mean, geez, that whole conversation from last week is now laughable. If you're a foreign player, why in God's name would you go play in Russia?
Especially if you're going to get paid in rubles, which are basically worthless at this point.
Yeah, even shady, Russian oligarch settings, there's not enough money that you can possibly get.
Let's talk a little bit about the Ukraine. Clearly, the Ukrainian league is on hiatus. Now, we've got a completely different set of circumstances going on there. Let's imagine that this all ends positively, right? This goes on for another week, maybe two. We negotiate a peaceful end to this that sees Ukraine retain its independence and its status as a independent country, and it's allowed to reemerge as a democratic. Where does this leave currently the Ukrainian league and the Ukrainian national team? Because so many of the major cities have now sustained massive damage. We're talking about, even if the country emerges whole, we've got issues in Donbass and Donetsk, Kharkiv, all the major cities, I think with the possible exception of Odessa, have basically been destroyed, right?
And Lviv in the west.
All right. So of the 5 major cities that I can think of, 3 of the 5 have basically been leveled. The soccer playing infrastructure, for lack of a better way to put it, is going to mirror Iraq circa 2003, where do you play? What do you do? Is there a possibility that we can say, okay, we're going to pick the Ukrainian league up and move it to Poland?
That might actually, at least in the interim, be the solution, because the league was doing, before the Maidan in 2013, the league was actually doing fairly well. I know now when we think of the UPL, we think of the Dynamo Shakhtar duopoly, but clubs like Chernomorets Odessa, Middle East Kharkiv, the sadly no longer with us Dnipropetrovsk, it was a very competitive league. The ongoing conflict in the Donbass has led to problems. I mean, the league has been in decline for the last 7 years, and this, if anything, just has accelerated that. And in terms of rebuilding the infrastructure, rebuilding, the finances, I don't want to make like a World War II analogy, but Ukrainian football is going to need the equivalent of a Marshall Plan to get back on its feet again. Because, even at the best of times, the league is low on funds, or due to endemic corruption, the funds just magically disappear. This is going to take a major effort, and an effort that definitely goes beyond the means of what a post-conflict Ukraine could possibly offer.
All right, Mike, I want to bring you in on this. You have a lot of experience in that region, both having lived there and having studied it extensively. I wanted to get your thoughts on this, about, where do you see the future for Ukrainian football, the Ukrainian Premier League going? Assuming that, again, like, let's assume the best and that this all ends peacefully. We don't have a protracted sort of situation that results in we have a relatively quick, a peaceful ending to this situation that resolves it and allows it to go on before any more too much more damage is done.
Well, I think I think probably Ukrainian football is definitely done for this year, because even if tomorrow some magical deal was worked out and the Russian tanks and troops disappeared from Ukraine, a lot of the guys in the league have signed up for the home guard and are going to have to, they're going to have to serve out their terms doing that. I'm sure they'd let the football stadiums go and give people some entertainment, but you got to figure that a lot of those places are going to be refugee camps. If there's
the ones that aren't already destroyed,
right? If they're not being destroyed, they're probably being used as landing grounds and as various staging grounds for certain armies. So I mean, you're going to have to talk about rebuilding the turf first, rebuilding the teams, and then rebuilding stadiums. I mean, if the Ukrainian league, if this is a short conflict, a couple months, that gets somehow peacefully resolved, I still, by next year, maybe mid next year, I couldn't see them coming back before then. It's going to be such a logistical challenge, and there's going to be destruction to deal with.
So, amongst the other things that we have to deal with, ostensibly, Ukraine is supposed to play a playoff against Scotland in Glasgow on March 24th. Right? We've seen Russia be withdrawn. We saw that, like, this is a Ukrainian team, Mike, that made it to the knockout rounds of the last Euros, right? Yes, they got sadly defeated by England in a game that I watched happily with you.
That's why I made this shirt.
Yes, you and your Ukraine shirt were the only person in there rooting for the Ukraine in an Irish bar in Philadelphia rooting for the Ukraine. Yeah, that went over like the proverbial lead balloon, but it was fun. How are they? Are they going to be able to? Should they even try to play this game?
Are they going to be able to? I doubt it. I mean, they were pretty, there's a lot of domestic players on the team. So, are they going to be able to get enough guys out of Ukraine to go play the match? I don't know where they are. Ukrainian footballers might have been shoved out of the country, at the first sign of conflict, should such a thing occur. I don't know. But to me, if they can field the team, they should. I think it would be a big resilient sign, even if they went in there and got killed by Scotland, just waving the flag, getting cheered by all the Scots, and then, playing the game. I think they should if the players are there.
Matt, do you think they can get this off?
I can only echo what Mike just said. Logistically, I'm not so certain. There are a lot of Ukrainian players, a lot more than, let's say, the Russians in some major Western leagues. My concern would be like depth. I think they could get a starting 11 together. After that, I'm not so certain. But if they can, I agree. I think they have to. Just from a simple morale standpoint. And sort of, I guess, as a, look, football's been played in Ukraine since the first decade of the 20th century. It has survived revolution, 2 goddamn world wars, famine, political repression, neoliberal shock therapy, fuck capitalism. It's going to be able to survive this too. We don't say no. We don't surrender like that.
You know what? I'm
symbolic.
I was going to go on a little bit. I'm going to actually leave it with that because that is the perfect sentiment to leave it with. It survived since then. It's going to survive this. It'll be back. So we're going to take it. We're going to take a turn. We're going to talk now about a little bit about the Carabao Cup. Gentlemen, that was an interesting one. Somehow they played for 120 minutes, went through 11 full rounds of penalties, and Pep Guardiola in Manchester City still got the trophy. It was an interesting game. Chances, goals ruled out. You can have different views on it depending on your bend. I was, as a neutral, was not or slightly, I don't even want to say a neutral, like, can I be a negative on this? Like I wasn't rooting for either team. I was rooting for
absolutely. That was me during the Champions League final. Are you kidding me?
I was rooting for the stadium to tilt slightly sideways and all of them to fall off into an endless pit from which they never were seen again. But watching it, at times I was interested, at times it kind of left me. But, then I've seen it be, this was the greatest Carabao Cup final ever. I will say that the penalty shootout, for better or worse, to a certain extent, I think it's like the last set at a Rolling Stones concert, right? The last set at the Rolling Stones concert when they break out Paint It Black and Street Fighting Man and all the classics, and Mick Jagger and Keith Richards are absolutely jamming, makes you forget the fact that for the previous 2.5 hours, they absolutely could not move. And then you walk off thinking like they're the greatest band ever to play. But it was like, damn, that last hour. So the last, or how the last 10 minutes of I was thinking of that M. Night Shyamalan movie made you forget how boring the previous 2 hours and the last 10 seconds of what was that one?
Signs?
No, the one with Bruce Willis. Haley Joe. Huh? No. Was it Signs? No,
it's The Sixth Sense.
The Sixth Sense.
Yeah,
The Sixth Sense. The last 10 seconds of The Sixth Sense makes you forget how boring the previous 2 hours and 50 minutes were, right? I wonder
Signs only had one really good part too.
Signs had 2 good parts. When they're standing out in the field, in that cornfield, and that leg goes into the bush from behind, I was like, that made me jump.
No, the part that made me jump was when Joaquin Phoenix is sitting in that stairwell and watching that screen, and it's coming. And when it comes out, you still jump. You can't take it. You know it's coming. That's how good that scene was.
Yeah, that leg though in that one, that was all that was it in signs. That was the one that made I actually went twice for that, and I still jumped the second time I saw it. You're like, oh nah, there's nothing there, and then that leg just disappears into the corn stalks. I want to get your thoughts on it. It was let's just say it was interesting. So to the victors go the spoils. Professor Kowalski, your impressions of the victorious Liverpool team in the 2022 Carabao Cup.
The big things that I can take away from it is, for the first time, maybe in the entire Klopp era, I am truly happy with not the squad depth per se, the quality of the depth we have. Thiago gets hurt before the match even starts. We can bring in a Naby Keita, Harvey Elliott, who's a child. He really is. Comes in, wasn't even going to be on the sheet. Diaz is freaking good, real good. And from a Liverpool perspective, the most shocking thing of all is we actually have a backup goalkeeper. Usually,
yeah, I was going to ask you about keeping Kelleher. Like, number one, it took me 9 Google searches to figure out that his name is pronounced Kevin.
Yes,
Kevin Kelleher. Yes, you have a good goalkeeper. How long can you hang on to him? Because after this performance, I gotta believe that there are teams lined up to get him.
Yeah.
And
the hardest position to fill in any sport, I believe, is backup goalkeeper. Because if you're any kind of good, you want minutes. And I'll be honest, I think he could start in at least a third of the teams in the EPL and quite a few teams abroad. I think we probably hold on to him maybe until the end of next season. But outside of that, I'm not so sure. It's going to be tough. Again, it's weird. It's weird just to know that you have a good goalkeeper as a Liverpool fan, knowing that you have 2 pretty good ones. I have no frame of reference for this. Literally no frame of reference for this.
it goes to penalties. Normally, when you look at penalties that a shootout that goes to goalkeepers, you say, all right, somebody messed up, poor goalkeeping, something like that. Mike said, I gotta admit, those were actually some really well taken penalties.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, except one, and to reply to Matt's point, well, it must be nice to have 2 good goalkeepers. But yeah, everybody, you know what? It was weird. The people who didn't look really all that confident from the Chelsea side were like Lukaku, who got his in, did his job. And then what was it? Chalobah was up there like shaking, going last. But aside from that, yes, all confidently struck. Jorginho actually made it.
Conte made it.
That in big competitions.
Conte made it. Conte's not a shooter, and he made it.
Right. I mean, it's guy. Kelleher's shot. How about the confidence on that? My God, he just drilled it. But I said to the group, if Kepa is going to be your goalkeeper who does shootouts, and that's all he does really, shouldn't he practice taking them just in case? And of course, then he missed.
So it was an interesting decision. And we've got to talk about the fact that, okay, first and foremost, I got to give him a rare side because Bayern Rob reminded me of this. Virgil van Dijk stepping up during the top 5 and just absolutely lacing one and walking off like, yeah, what the hell did you expect from me?
He said, you stand there, I'm just going to put it right through you. And he did.
Yes. That was
some great penalties though. Considering how poor we've seen some PKs have been over the last 5 years or so, that was definitely a breath of fresh air. So I just wanted to throw that in there because we've seen some bad penalty kicks recently.
Well, I've seen one. Okay, so I've seen 2 finals within the last 6 months go to goalkeepers. Manchester United last year against Villarreal and this one. By far, I believe this was the better penalty shootout simply because the quality was there was one in there that I thought Kepa could have gotten. There's the one that he got his hand to, and I'm not sure who shot it, but he got his hand to it. But it was,
I think it was Konate.
Yeah. He got his hand to Konate's, but there was so much power on it. I was watching it with a couple of guys. We were talking about, like, you know, a lot of the Liverpool guys going up and doing the stutter step, but also bringing up the fact that, yes, I don't know how to regulate that out. It does give an advantage to the shooter, but the body control that it takes to be able to slow your momentum to a degree that they do, but then still have enough torso and hip power to put the power on the shot that they were, tells you the amount of athleticism and practice that is going into that. So as much as I was thinking, like, yeah, they totally got Kepa on that, because you could see every time one of the Liverpool players stepped up and did a stutter step, Kepa moved, and then they just had free range to shoot it. Mike, we've also got to talk about the fact that Mendy was having a really fantastic game. I know that Kepa is quote unquote the penalty specialist. I don't know, like, how much of that is fact and how much of that is fiction. He's going to have to answer for that decision.
Yeah, no, and I think it's worked out in the past. So, you know, why change it, right? He's won the Super Cup like that. And has had cup success domestically with that. I was a goalkeeper, and I was not a penalty kick specialist. So we actually on our team had a player who would sub into keeper for me. It's if you're not that confident doing it and someone else is, I mean, it's a completely different game. Edward Mendy was the player of the match, but if you don't have the confidence to do it, or the coach thinks that someone is, I don't really think it's all that controversial.
Is it? I guess the next question then is, well, and we may never know the answer to this, is the extent to which Edouard Mendy feels comfortable taking PKs versus them saying, like, okay, we've done this, we've seen this before. You know, probably the most famous one was when they went to sub out Kepa in the first place, and again with Sarri, and he pitched a fit and refused to come off the field and be substituted out because it was going to penalties. I
mean, I think that probably got rid of Sarri, so I was cool with that.
Y'all gave Sarri a raw deal. He won stuff. So
he was overrated.
We can agree to disagree on that, my man. So we got a couple of minutes left, Mike. I want to make sure that we get to your weekly lower league report so that we can know what we're watching or not watching this week. So in the remaining 10, 12 minutes that we have, give us a quick update on what's going on down the leagues.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Last week I said, hey, watch Blackburn. And of course they proceeded to lose and then win. So nothing so magical came for Blackburn out of their big week last week. There wasn't a lot of change really in the lower leagues. There's the just kind of 2 through 8 rumblings going around. But I did also mention last week that you should watch Sunderland and Wigan, or it wasn't on TV, but to keep in mind. Sunderland on the road actually delivered big time.
Big win for Sunderland. That was massive.
winning 3-0 and propping themselves back up into a playoff position. It was a win they very much needed, and it was very emphatically done. So Sunderland looking okay. Really, it didn't hurt Wigan that much. Wigan played again today as they're out of the FA Cup, and won. They're still 3 points clear at the top of League One, in the second spot, and they have 2 games in hand. So things still looking good for Wigan. They just they did a solid to their boys over at Sunderland and let them beat them. I'm sure they didn't let them. We had some pretty big Derby County news this weekend. But I don't know, Stead, did you have anything on any of those leagues?
No, I didn't. I actually was, of course, focusing on what was happening with Sunderland, considering that they seem to be the most inconsistent team in League One. That should not be that inconsistent, but that was a big win over Wigan. You're seeing League One as and we talked about this a few months ago, where League One seemed to be the most competitive league when it came to the top half of the table about who's going to be going up, and I'm happy that that's kind of held firm, because you're seeing the championship sort of, it's being pretty clear. Also in League Two, you're seeing Forest Green is clearly just waiting for the season to end. And then, it was nice to see Exeter kind of bought back up as the top position in the playoffs, but still League One is still where it's at. It's League One. So I think that, so that was sort of like my big focus was, is Sunderland going to get that win? Because you saw that win bucked them up three places in the table because they were out. So it's, I feel like that's where the majority of your reports are going to be coming from for the remainder of the season of League One. Yeah. But I think that's where you should keep it, because it really is what's most exciting.
Right. Yeah, no, it really is. And it's been a great season down there in League One. Interesting to note, before I move over to Derby, because this is actually kind of part of the Derby tale. Sunderland moving up to 6 moved Wickham down to 7. Mm-hmm. So we know about Derby County and all the problems they had. Yesterday, the league issued them an ultimatum. You might recall about a month ago, the league let them have an extra month to get their finances in order to show them how they were going to finish out the season. And part of that was the hope that a new ownership group would come in, assume a lot of the debts,
right,
and then take over the team. That hasn't happened yet. So yesterday they issued an ultimatum saying, we need you to tell us by the end of the week. And apparently the Derby administrators have called now for final written bids from all interested parties. Instead, the mood up in Derbyshire has grown glum again. They think the Football League has it in for Derby County. Derby County, by the way, on the field, have dropped off. The prospect of their great escape from relegation to League One
Right.
is looking glum.
Yeah.
Now
Cardiff over the weekend.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and lost. Yeah, lost. They lost today and on the weekend. It's not good. They've got a big match against Barnsley, who are at the bottom of the league, below them, even though they've been stripped of 21 points.
Right.
Instead, I'm worried again.
Yeah, this doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. And you're looking at, it's just sad. I mean, they're only 5 down for goal differential. Like, the team is competing. I think the only thing that's going to come positive of this is Wayne Rooney's going to come out of this smelling pretty damn sweet. He is. He is really, as a guy who has opened up recently about his issues with alcohol and how he has probably didn't reach his physical potential as a player due to his drinking, but to go through that and to suddenly become more of a sympathetic figure in English football, and to really just say to the Everton job, don't even look at me. I know I'm not ready. And number 2, I have a job to finish here. And that they're going through this whole thing with administration. I'm sure that the Derbyshire people wish that he would just buy the team and just take on the debt himself. And I don't think that's a smart move for Wayne Rooney, but I really think he's going to come out of this as he's going to return as one of England's favorite sons again. He's still young. He's still starting his managerial career, but to see what he's going through and how he's still keeping that team competitive is really, really quite remarkable. And wait 2 years. It's gonna be a much different story for Wayne Rooney in about 2 years. So it's gonna be.
I mean, I've got to say, if they do end up winding down Derby, Wayne Rooney has a potential to be the next MP from there, because he's, I mean, Labor, Conservative, Liberal Dems, get up there, get recruiting, because he's really, again, he's held that team together and like you've mentioned, just made himself a folk hero.
Yeah, absolutely. With super glue and duct tape, he's held them together. And I will pay more attention to that now, primarily because they are about to miss another deadline. But it will be. I'm curious to see what this does with the Rooney story, because it's been a little shaky lately. And it's, even though I hated him until he came to DC United, and now I can't help but support the guy. So I really hope that he is able to get something really positive out of this, because he is shown that he's got some principles. He could have easily walked. He could, even if he didn't take the Everton job, he could have joined Frank Lampard's team or something like that and been part of that coaching staff or something like that. And just to be like, nope, I'm here, I'm sticking this out, is really, really admirable. And I think he was very wise to do that. And I think he knew, hopefully somebody had somebody giving him good advice, saying, yeah, but this is a really admirable move. It may suck now, but this is going to pay dividends in very, very, very few years. And you're going to look back at this and they're going to be patting you on the back for decades.
Yep. All right, just 2 more things to round out the lower league report. Want to talk a little bit about FA Cup. FA Cup 5th round started today. We, of course, had Tottenham go out to Middlesbrough. Tottenham, I don't know, they win 5-0, they lose to a lower league side. But that guarantees that we will have a lower league side in the quarterfinals. There was always going to be one. Nottingham Forest, Huddersfield playing tomorrow or on Monday. So draw will be Monday before that game. Chelsea are playing Luton Town, and you know what? I'm a little bit nervous. Luton Town won 3 straight in the championship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a big letdown for Chelsea and continued controversy.
And this is away. This is an away match too. So
right.
Yeah.
I mean, the questions of who is your owner are going to start to pop up in the Chelsea locker room, in addition to having lost 11-10 in the shootout of a cup final just 3 days before. So if you're looking upset, look Luton Town versus my Chelsea Blues. I'm nervous for this one. And finally, there's Boreham Wood playing Everton. Boreham Wood, the only non-league side left. Quarterfinals is the farthest that a non-league side has gone. Those, of course, being those wonderful imps a couple of years ago. But how much do you trust Everton?
And the question would be, how much do you trust Everton right now? They're coming off of a very controversial loss, and if I'm Frank Lampard, I'm willing to give this one up if it means that I can focus back on the Premier League, because Roberto Martinez with Wigan was cute, win the FA Cup and go down, but nobody wants to be the Premier League team that gets relegated at the same time they make it to the quarterfinals of the FA Cup, because all anybody's going to remember about that season is y'all got relegated, right? Not that you made it to quarterfinal. I don't, in the grand scheme of things, would we remember, outside of a trivia question years from now, who Boreham Wood beat to make it to the quarterfinals? No. So,
right. Yeah, who did Lincoln City beat?
Yeah,
5 years ago. I don't remember.
I don't know. So I got to think, like, as much as you say, Mike, you think Luton Town over Chelsea could be an upset. If I had to pick one, I think it would be that one.
Wow.
Simply because of how poorly Everton are playing, where their focus is, and where Boreham Woods is right now. Like, this is their Super Bowl. They're going to go out and give it everything that they've got, even if they are not nearly as talented as Everton is. What type of team does Lampard put out? How much does he have invested in this game, or is he content to just let it be?
I don't know. To me, I think he's got to put, they don't have other competitions going on. So I think he should put at least a moderate foot forward there.
Yeah, but they don't have other competitions insofar as they're not in Europe or any place else. They have a major competition because they're fighting for their lives in the Premier League.
Yep. So, no, you're right. All right. Last thing from me this week, game of the weekend coming up in your 7:30 Eastern window, 12:30 Britain window is
Jesse Marsch in his debut against Leicester. So yeah,
no, Fulham at Blackburn. You get 1 versus 4 in the championship. So watch, see if Mitrovic scores.
We'll have a conversation about him later. All right, gentlemen. Wow.
This one flew by.
A and B. It was a really interesting discussion.
Yeah.
I actually feel like I learned something. Guys, it's been great. We had a really good discussion. I want to thank Celtic Cam for coming on, leading off the show, talking a little bit of rugby, Scotland, getting into some of the dynamics of what's going to go on and that rat race that is the middle of the table heading into the split. Byron Robb talking about Jesse Marsch going on to coach Leeds, talking a little bit of the Bundesliga, giving us some information on MLS and a bit of a premature MLS preview, but we appreciate it anyway. We know that we're not 5 weeks into the season, which is standard MLS preview time for Too Many Guys Soccer Show. We'll get there. No worries.
May 15th is the MLS preview show. May 15th.
May 15th. We're not going to preview the MLS until June. That's when it really
Yeah,
starts.
it's after England ends, right?
Yeah. Really gotta thank the professor Matt Kowalski and Chelsea Mike coming on, talking the effects of the invasion on Ukrainian and Russian soccer. Gentlemen, that was a fantastic conversation. I really appreciated that. Got a lot out of it. That was everything that we had hoped for. We got into a little bit of the Carabao Cup, and then we ended up with the lower leagues. So thanks, Mike, for coming on and doing that. All in all, gentlemen, this was a very successful show. We did all right this week. Maybe we can do better next week. I don't even know, Stead.
These shows are getting good, but if anybody's listening, you want to drop us a line, send us an email at toomanyguyssoccershow@gmail.com. toomanyguyssoccershow@gmail.com.
Yeah, somebody has the password for that and can you open it. I don't know who, but somebody does.
I can at least answer emails. Rob's got Twitter on lock.
Yeah, we can do that. All right. So for Celtic Cam, Red Bull Rob, the professor Matt Kowalski, Chelsea Mike Shoestack, and of course, producer Stead. I'm Mike. This has been Too Many Guys Soccer Show. Have a good week.